Hi, everyone. So he stole my opening line. I'm substituting for Barbara Jenko because she has laryngitis, and we didn't think this would go better in mime. I am a little froggy, but nothing to what she's got. And I hope you'll bear with me because I only found out I was doing this 2 days ago that I'm not off book. I'm not going to read you the slides. You guys are in publishing. If you can't read, we're doomed. So I'm going to be presenting our data from our Patron Profiles. Did that, in fact, advance? Patron Profiles is a series of surveys of library patrons that Library Journal has conducted. The library field has a ton of data, but what makes these different is that we went right to the consumers instead of going through the library, so it's not colored by the librarian's preconceptions at all. We had a little help doing the survey. So your first takeaway is we have a lot of libraries, and they see a lot of traffic. Not surprisingly, they also buy a lot of books for their users. Are we not advancing? Thank you. They're also already buying a lot of ebooks. That 89% on the slide is up 7% from 2011, I'm sorry. And 2011 was up another 10% from 2010. So far, ebooks are only about 6% of libraries' materials budgets, but it's growing fast, and as more publishers make ebooks available to libraries, it's going to grow even faster. So one common misconception about libraries is that they're mostly used by poor people who can't afford to buy their own books. But of course, people of all income levels use the library, but as you can see, the majority of library users are actually middle class. The average household income is about $66,000, which goes, I hear, a lot further if you don't live in New York City. While many library users visit the library's website as well as the physical building, so far at least, we're finding it's mostly an addition rather than a substitution. Only 5% visited the website exclusively. By the way, following the guy with the comic slides is kind of intimidating. Sorry, there's not going to be any action and adventure. So these numbers represent how many books the respondents have read in the last year. Not surprisingly, library users are book people. What may surprise you, though, is that patrons don't go to the library instead of buying books. In fact, library borrowers are active book buyers. Ebook borrowers are even more active book buyers. They're 6% more likely than their non-ebook counterparts to buy books as well as borrow them. For library patrons, browsing library shelves is the third most popular method for discovering which books to read, behind recommendations from friends and browsing at the bookstore. So I started out by saying there's a lot of libraries in the US. As this slide illustrates, there are a lot more libraries than there are bookstores. And that's before Barnes & Noble announced its recent plan to close 20 stores a year for the next 10 years. That doesn't mean bookstores are not still important, of course, but it does mean that for more and more people, the library is the main, local, convenient place where they can go to find new books. Patron Profiles found that libraries make a major impact on how their customers discover books. Good old-fashioned browsing in the shelves for something that looks interesting is still the major factor. And interestingly, that's even more true of ebook borrowers than it is of print borrowers. I don't know if that means they're reading in both formats or if they're doing their discovery in print and then reading it in e-format. They're also even more likely to be influenced by browsing in the online catalog. So again, this is from last summer, this data, so it's before Barnes & Noble announced its closing, but it is after Borders. Of those who lost a brick-and-mortar store near them, almost half increased their library usage as a result. According to the most recent Codex survey, although online selling accounts for 61% of book sales, it only accounts for 7% of discovery. That other 54% has got to come from somewhere. So And one of the places is libraries. Basically, libraries are a great example of showrooming, except without the guilt. Borrowing drives book purchasing. And certain genres are even more prone to this effect than others, particularly readers of young adult books, graphic novels, business and career books, and street lit are especially likely to buy the same title that they already took out of the library. Barbara, who I'm impersonating today, says that a lot of this is probably driven by series books, but anecdotally, I think it also works for standalones in the same genre by the same author. Even more so than for finding particular titles, the library works as a showroom for readers to try out new authors or kinds of books. Borrowers of young adult again, business and careers again, home decorating and gardening, and humor are almost twice as likely to say they frequently use the library to discover new writers or try out new genres. So now we come to the ebooks. When it comes to borrowing ebooks, libraries have a way to go to get to a majority, but about a third of patrons have tried them already. A quarter like them, and another quarter say they might in the future. That's already higher than the general population. According to the Pew Internet and American Life Project, as of this past December, 23% of Americans aged 16 and older had read an ebook. And of course, the numbers will go up as more libraries make ebooks available. About 40% of patrons already know that libraries have ebooks, or that their library does, and 30% of those have borrowed one already. Borrowing print books is not going away, though. It remains the king of library activities. However, checking out other media, audiobooks and ebooks are growing, and they're growing even faster among people of color. Unfortunately, not everybody who checks out an ebook from the library discovers a new title or an author or a genre. What more than half of them discover is that they can't get the book they want. And more than a fifth of them found the whole thing so annoying or confusing that they just quit. We're not so into that. Library patrons have very strong opinions on how ebooks ought to be available to them. They love the convenience of 24/7 online lending, and they don't think that ebook lending should exactly mirror print lending models. So, as you can see, they don't mind a little windowing, but they mind if it goes on too long. One thing they really have no patience for is the idea that was floated originally of making patrons come into the physical library to get ebooks. Even though they don't mind doing that for physical books, they feel there's a big difference between friction that's inherent in the model and friction that's artificially induced. So, back when we did this survey, librarians expressed a lot of frustration about their inability to buy the ebooks that their customers are demanding. And that was especially true because their customers often don't understand why the library can't go and buy them on Amazon the way the consumer did. However, there's been progress on that front since we did the study. Many major publishers in the meantime have dipped a toe back into the waters of e-lending. In the last couple of months alone, both Penguin and Macmillan have launched promising pilots. So, we'll leave you with this thought. Ultimately, what I take from this quote is not only that we don't have to fear that ebooks will make print books obsolete. It's that libraries and library ebooks will not make bookstores and book buying obsolete. They may take a little of each other's share here and people figure out what their preferences are, but in the end, what they mostly do is work together to make a bigger pie, increasing the number of readers and increasing the number of books that each reader can conveniently read. Thank you very much.